is Eric Ndazza.
Hello, my name is Dewey Northrup.
My name's Stanley Rieger.
I'm Aaron Mast.
I'm also a home brewer.
And I'm a home brewer.
And I'm a home brewer.
On my last semester of school, my favorite teacher got me a job making wine, and after working and making wine, I decided that since I loved it and thought it was so much fun that I should do beer instead, because I love beer more than I love wine.
I just turned 21 a little while ago, and my girlfriend got me my first kit. She thought it'd be a good present for me, and I ended up really liking it, so actually she had her parents buy me an even more expensive kit, and that's where I am now.
I'm a culinary student, so I just really enjoy cooking and experimenting with food, so it's pretty much a no-brainer just to go for it. Heard a lot of fun things about it. Just thought I'd give it a shot.
My roommates here got me started on home brewing, and I recently just finished my first batch.
The first time I brewed was, well, the day after I put them in bottles. I accidentally froze them. Not what you want to do. It didn't turn out too good. Second time around though, everything stayed the right temperature. There was no freezing going on. It was a little warmer out, so it turned out much better.
Sanitation. You know, you keep one utensil or one spoon, anything you're using in the process unsanitized. It can really mess up your whole batch.
A huge important step is sanitation. You screw up sanitation of your bottles, your fermentation vessel, any of that stuff, and you can get a really off flavor in your beer.
In my opinion, you can't really mess up a whole batch of beer unless it has to do something with sanitation. But beer is going to develop a new flavor as time goes on. You can't brew something that you can't drink. There's no bad bacteria that can grow in it to prevent you from drinking it. So I say don't let a beer ruin, just give it some time and it'll develop more flavor. No matter what you brew, you can't brew something that is going to harm your body, so whatever you make, drink it up. My favorite beer would have to, at the moment, be Brooklyn Summer Ale. Just a really nice, refreshing beer, especially in the summertime when the weather's getting nicer.
I'm a Busch guy, but this European lager that I just brewed was pretty delicious, so that was good.
My favorite beer would have to be Land Shark.
My favorite part of the beer is usually the head of it and how much foam there is and the retention of the head and how nicely it'll stay.
I'm not a big fan of real hoppy beers. I like them nice and light.
A good beer, I feel, should have the right amount of carbonation and good flavor.
My name is Allison Capoza, and I'm the publicity manager for Brewery Ommegang in Duval, USA.
Welcome to Brewery Ommegang. My name is Jared. I'll be the tour guide today. Before we head over to the actual brewery, we'll talk a little bit about the history of the brewery. We got started in 1997 by a couple locals from Cooperstown, Don Feinberg and his wife Wendy Littlefield, but they actually had been involved with beer for a long time before that. They did a study abroad while they were in college in Belgium and fell deeply in love with Belgian beer. When they came back to the United States, they couldn't find it anywhere.
Ommegang brews the equivalent of 15 million 12-ounce bottles of beer every year. Well, we certainly keep an eye on the beer flavor trends in the United States, but being that Ommegang is a Belgian-style brewery, everything we brew is Belgian style. We don't brew anything that's outrageous or overly spiced or overly flavored. Everything Ommegang brews is well balanced.
So after a few years of importing beer, they got the idea to brew the Belgian style, but to brew it here in the United States. And by doing that, they would cut out the shipping costs from overseas, and they would cut out the import tariffs that were assessed on imports, because it's now technically domestic. So to do that, they had to raise some capital. To raise the initial capital, they reached out to a well-known Belgian brewer, Duvel Mortgat, who is most known for Duvel Golden Ale.
Our most well-known promotional beer is the Game of Thrones series. It's in conjunction with HBO for their hit show Game of Thrones. Our third beer, Fire and Blood Red Ale, debuts at the end of March. In terms of the fastest selling beer, it would be the Game of Thrones series. Everything we brew sells out within a matter of days in some locations, hours in some locations. It might stick around for a month depending on how much we've sent to a certain city.
Duvel provided a good chunk of our startup capital, and in 1997, Brewery Omegang was founded. The property we're on here right now is the original property. Back in the 1800s, it was a 136-acre hops farm, so there is some beer history on the property here. So using that capital investment, they built the original brew house building, which is still over there, although it's been added to significantly since then. It's modeled after a 15th century Belgian farmhouse, but it is a fully modern facility, as you'll see when we head inside. All right, so now we head into the brew house. Gets a little loud in here, guys, just forewarning. How's it going? Brewing some hennepin, I see. So this is where it all starts at Omegang. This is the brew house. Our brew system are these 3 tanks right over here. They're a 50-barrel brew system, brewing approximately 1,500 gallons to a batch. And right now, to keep up with the demand for our products, we are brewing 24 hours a day, 5 days a week, or at least in some form of production, 24 hours a day, 5 days a week. Every batch of beer that we brew here at Omegang is going to start up in that loft area. That's called the mill house. It's basically like a pantry. Up there, you'll find all the different dry grain, all the hops, all the spices, everything we're going to use to actually brew the beer. When we're brewing, we'll start with what's called the grist bill, which is basically the dry grain recipe. So we weigh out all the different grains, get them ready to be brewed, and then we'll start by taking the grain and running it through the mill, which is that big metal box over there. Now the mill will crush up the grain into what's called grist, basically cracking open the hard shell on the outside, exposing all the starches on the inside. Now from here, we transfer the wort into the tank in the back. That's the brew kettle. You guys come on over, it's fine. You can see there's steam pouring out of it right now. They have a batch boiling. One of our brewers is about to take a sample. Basically in the brew kettle, you're going to add the hops and the spices to the recipe. And the way you do that is really straightforward. Hops are actually just going to be dumped right in. They need to go in at a very specific time, but once they're in, they're just going to boil in for the whole boil. The spices are going to go in just like brewing a pot of tea, actually. You can see they got a spice bag ready over here. We're brewing hennepin today, our saison, which has ginger and orange peel and coriander seed in it. And this bag here, you can see, is just loaded up with that stuff. So in here we have the lagering hall. Lagering is a very simple process. All you do when you lager a beer is get it really cold and let it sit there. Beer fermented in the open fermenter will be lagered in one of these 3 cylinder conical tanks right here. Now beer fermented in the closed fermenters outside, those are also cylinder conical tanks. They're also temperature controlled. The beer will just be lagered right out there. Those tanks are a much, much bigger volume than what we're dealing with in here. Now the other thing that's happening, and this is very important, is any of the large sediment that's still on that beer, any yeast sediment, any grain that made it through the false bottom, any hop particles, anything like that, that's all going to raft together or clump together and slowly settle down to the bottom of the CCT tanks. That's why they're cone-shaped at the bottom. That collects all that sediment to a point. Once all that stuff is settled out, we'll hook up a pipe to the bottom of the tank and purge the sediment into a big drain in the center of the brew floor over there, which connects over to our water treatment facility.
2 guys that own it, Tom Kroll and Jay Cunningham, were approached by another brewery that had a small system available for purchase about 10 years ago. And they contemplated if they wanted to open a brewery in a small town, and they went for it. And I signed on a year later, and we've been making beer since 2007. It's been a fun ride. It's serving a small community, but also trying to get our beer out to larger markets like Albany and down to New York. We have to focus our energy on a couple of beers that we think are going to sell well, and 2 of those are our Maple Amber and our 8-barrel Strong Ale. And those 2 are the ones that we're going to push for the next 6 months, see how they go. I'd say believe in yourself, and it's a tough business to crack into, and it's a very tough business to continue to have success. So just believe in yourself and work really hard.